As this is the return of the Shaman King anime, which is adapting the full manga, naturally there'll be a major buzz surrounding the first episode of this long-awaited anime series. So what we are going to do is split this video into two parts: the overall review and how it merits as a standalone episode without any comparisons to the manga or the original anime. The second part is the comparison between this, the 2021 version, the original 2001 anime, as well as the manga. If you want to be part of the Shaman tribe, please click the subscribe button and help us on our journey to 1,000 subs.
Now, we're not going to compare it to the older anime nor the manga. This is only going to look at the episode for what it is and how it stands on its own 2 feet. I'm Dimsy from the Shaman tribe. Let's talk Shaman King 2021. The art and animation is fantastic and fluid. The lighting and shading are used for dramatic effect and it adds so much personality to the scenes. I love the light work, especially in the nighttime scenes where the shading is very dramatic. It gives off a mysterious supernatural aura to the scene as the characters look luminescent in the night. This is because only one side is being heavily lit up and the other side has very dramatic and dark shadows. During the day, however, the light is more evenly distributed and it gives off a more flat, opaque feel. But since the same vibrancy and color palette is being used for night and day, it just comes across as if there's two distinct worlds existing which are separated by night and day. A nice touch. The music and sound complement the scenes very well. It felt very energetic and comedic when Yoh and Manta interacted, very tense and sad when they tried to kill Baby Hao, and very hype and shamanistic when Yoh fought Ryu. The best phrase to summarize this episode is that a lot happens. I won't detail every event and nor will I talk about it in chronological order, but just know that they established a worldview on shamans, add layers to our main protagonist by giving him ambition, smarts, as well as being proactive. We had bonds being formed and enemies being teased, both immediate and long running with Ren and Hao, but it never ever felt overwhelming. Why? Because they sowed the seeds in early. They showed us Yoh scoping out Amidamaru in the beginning, middle, and by the end when Amidamaru accepts to become his guardian ghost, it didn't feel out of the blue. Manta was our mouthpiece to question the shaman world, and sure, we had him discover the shaman world from a very normal and human point of view, but we also had very concise and effective exposition dumps with Yoh's commentary and what we saw in the beginning with Yomi, Yoh's granddad, trying to kill Baby Hao. We had an insight to the world of the shamans from the beginning and the narrative felt organic. A lot happened, but everything had adequate setup. This was not a character-centric episode, no, far from it. It was more so a barrage of spotlights on many characters. I feel like I already know Yoh, Manta and Amidamaru, or at least know enough about what their character beliefs and bases are. The episode had mystique intertwined with marvelous action pieces. It worked very well to showcase Shaman King, a great first episode that deserves plenty of praise. I laughed, I grinned and smiled ear to ear as I watched it. We know how it stands on its own and it stands very well, but how does it compare to its predecessor? How does it compare to the source material of the manga? Let's ask our tribal chief, Shady.
Shaman King 2021 episode 1 really started off with a bang. Literally, we had the series antagonist Hao Asakura introduced, being born and causing all sorts of damage to Yome and Mikihisa. Now, was this change a good thing compared to the original anime as well as the manga? On one hand, it is, because it establishes that there is a main villain for the story for all the people new to the series and are watching this episode solely for the hype. At least they will know who the main villain of the story is. The art and animation for the scene was beautiful, and throughout this entire episode it was just perfect in terms of the art, adapting the art style of Hiroyuki Take's original manga. It was good to see some blood, as we know the manga is very bloody, so it was nice seeing that from the opening scene. And of course, Hao's iconic line, "Chichianai," that is Hao's equivalent of "it will all work out" catchphrase compared to Yoh. I am so happy they included all of this in one scene. However, was it a good thing? I mentioned how it's good to introduce the villain straight off the bat for newer viewers and for us older viewers, because we all already know that Hao is the main villain. However, I have to say, chapter 68 of the manga, where we first see Hao with him just fishing by the river with the spear of fire just chilling, that panel was glorious for the art, and that was the first reveal of Hao. And even in the original anime, they had a similar scene with Hao's minions informing him that the Zen brothers, or Boz, the rocking band, whatever you prefer to call them, failed to defeat Yoh. We see the reveal of Hao in a similar manner. That was an iconic reveal for me personally, because when you first watch or read the series for the first time, you have no idea who he is, much less even think that he is Yoh's twin brother. So for the shock factor for new watchers of the series, the fact of finding out that the main villain is in fact the twin brother of our main protagonist is gone with this opening scene. So you can swing it both ways if this scene was good or not. I will let you guys decide whether you like this opening scene or not. This episode is good and fun, but a reason why I will be comparing it to the manga is because this series will be adapting the full manga. That's why I will be constantly making comparisons. When we see Ryu, he briefly mentions his best place, but the episode misses a key sentence that Ryu mentions in chapter 1, and this has nothing to do with the pacing. Ryu mentions the housing crisis in Tokyo and that there is no real place to stay. That's one of the reasons why he's looking for his best place. I think the anime should have adapted that line because it is a constant subject that Ryu addresses, to it almost becoming his catchphrase. Plus, it lets us know that Ryu and his mates are not just a bunch of thugs. They literally have no place to go because of the housing crisis, making us sympathize with Ryu. In this episode, he does at least mention his best place, so at least the viewer will know he is looking for his best place. But taking out the line of the housing crisis does lessen the inner meaning behind that line, as we will see in future episodes how much looking for a best place means to Ryu. This episode adapted both chapter 1 and chapter 2 of the manga. The episode does well in having Yoh proactively go out of his way to find and learn more about Amidamaru's backstory, which was a clever way of combining both chapter 1 and chapter 2 into this episode, making it seem he's more serious about the Shaman tournament and being the Shaman King, which he mentions right at the end of the episode. Whilst the way that scene was the link for both chapters and being the final payoff right at the end with Amidamaru joining up with Yoh, there are some key elements which is missed. Throughout chapter 1 and chapter 2, and even in the original anime of episode 1 and 2, Amidamaru was known as the Fiend that killed the Emperor's soldiers. He was an infamous legend. Even the anime for the 2021 version perfectly adapted the drawing of Amidamaru when describing the legend of the Fiend when B-Boy mentions it to Ryu in this episode. But that was the point. Amidamaru is an evil murderer in chapter 1 when Ryu tells his mates to attack Yoh after Yoh did the Hyogatai. Manta even warns them that he is possessed by the samurai, showing concern because Yoh has the spirit of the Fiend inside of him. Everyone in town is of the belief that Amidamaru is a heartless monster. That's why Manta was warning Ryu and his goons in chapter 1, the very people that almost killed him in the cemetery. Amidamaru himself became a lone warrior, shutting down everyone for 600 years, waiting for Mosuke. And with him knowing how people talk about him, gave him more reason to keep himself in isolation. However, Yoh, with the help of Mosuke, built the Harusame and gained the companionship of a so-called monster. Everyone believed that Amidamaru was a demon, apart from Yoh. That's why he was willing to help Amidamaru out and have him as his partner. That's what separates Yoh from everyone else. He sees the good in people, as we will 100% find out in the next few episodes when a certain character is introduced. Which is why Amidamaru ends up joining him. I do like how the original anime did it with having Ryu come back to kill Yoh in episode 2 after Yoh gave the Harusame to Amidamaru and tells him he's free to join up with Mosuke in the next world. And then right at the last second, Amidamaru saves Yoh and Manta from Ryu. I love the way that occurred in the original anime, and I actually prefer it in all honesty. But I think for me, the two major points the anime shouldn't have skipped is the line with Ryu mentioning the housing crisis and the whole concept of Amidamaru being a fiend. Now let's talk about the comparisons for the big moments, shot by shot, for the manga and anime. Majority of it is the same. The scene where he does the hero pose with that weapon he was using when fighting Ryu's goons was actually in reverse. He's pointing his weapon to the left side of our screen, whereas in the manga it was to the right, almost like looking at a mirror. The Hyogatai moment was a perfect screenshot from the anime to the manga, with the camera being right in front of Yoh as he puts the spirit flame mode of Amidamaru, integrating them both together. When Ryu orders the two guys to attack Yoh first, they actually have knives in the manga. Now it's understandable why the original anime, as well as this version, would cut that out, but when Yoh brings out the weapon after integrating with Amidamaru, when he sliced both of them and set them to the river again, that was a perfectly adapted shot by shot by the 2021 anime. And I like the added scene that he sent them both flying to the river. That gave that blow an extra kick. Like I said previously, the anime adapted Take's art style perfectly here, and I hope this continues for the remainder of the series. Now, as for the pacing, it is fast paced, but adapting 2 chapters into 1 episode is actually the norm for most anime, and with that scene in the museum, it does do the job in connecting the 2 chapters. The pacing is only an issue when they skip a few key lines and key moments, of which I have mentioned earlier, but adapting 2 chapters into 1 is perfectly fine, in my opinion anyway. It is still early days to judge the overall pacing, as it's only the first episode. We will have a better idea after 5 to 6 episodes, then we can make a fair judgment. I am super excited having Shaman King back as an anime again. The wait has been too long. I'm just grateful that we have an anime at all after so many years. We will be releasing discussion videos as well as the original anime review in 4 parts, so click the subscribe button to be notified when those videos are released. Who knows, maybe your favorite Shaman King character might have a dedicated video of their own as a character discussion, so subscribe to the Shaman Tribe.